Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Matt and this is Kerbal Space Program. This is not one of the career mode videos, instead I want to explain some useful things in the game. I made a new game in sandbox mode for that, and as you can see, the whole space center looks a bit bigger. That's because all the buildings are fully upgraded, something I haven't done in career mode so far. I think I haven't upgraded any yet. Anyway, explanations are more fun with examples, so we're gonna go to the VAB. And I've copied the lawn dart over from the career mode save. In the first episode I've mentioned that you can set the thrust or the power of a solid fuel booster before launch, and that can be done by right-clicking on it and setting the thrust limiter. I'm gonna set it to 11% right now. Oops. There we go. Yeah, another thing, one of the reasons why I chose to start with career mode is because in career mode you only have a handful of parts, and in sandbox you have all the parts. And that can be a bit overwhelming. So that's why I picked career mode. But sandbox mode is better if you just want to launch stuff without having to worry about funds or about unlocking parts first. If you want to unlock parts but don't want to worry about funds, there's also science mode. But that's just an aside. Right, now with the solid fuel booster with limited thrust, we're gonna go to the launch pad and see what happens at 11%. Or actually what happens when the craft isn't set to full thrust. We still throttle up, but as I said, that's probably not much point for it in it. SAS is on and we launch. And we quickly notice that at 11% thrust the rocket won't even get off the ground. That's not a glitch. I mean, you hear the engine running, solid fuel is also going down in the bottom left. But now, very slowly, it does take off. So what happened here? Well, it's simple. You've got two forces working on your rocket. One is gravity. It's pulling the rocket down, trying to keep it on the ground. And the other is the thrust that's trying to push it up. And you will only go up if your thrust is stronger than gravity. Don't have enough thrust, then you won't be going up. And now we burned out. And now only gravity is working on the rocket, so it's getting slower and going back down, and maybe I should open a parachute before we crash. Yeah. Because we didn't go very far up. Oh, I can switch off SAS. Oh yeah, the reason why the lawn dart didn't turn around to do the lawn dart maneuver is because I kept SAS on. It can keep the rocket pointing upwards if it isn't turned around too much. Right. And we got how high? 735 meters. Great, that's not very high. So we go back to the vehicle assembly building. Now the topic I want to talk about today is thrust to weight ratio. That means that's the ratio that between the thrust that you get from your engines and the weight of the craft. The weight itself is calculated by multiplying the mass with the gravitational constant of the planet. In Kerbin's case, that's 9.81 meters per second, the same as in Earth's case. So Kerbin and Earth have the same gravity, even though in the game Kerbin is actually a lot smaller than Earth. But more on that another time, maybe. The engine, or actually, yeah. So the weight would in this case be 2.3 tons multiplied by 9.81 meters per second. That gives us 22.5 or 0.6 kilonewtons of gravitational force. The flea booster has a maximum thrust of 179.2 kilonewtons in an atmosphere, and when I go down to 11% of that, we get to we get to 19.7. That's a bit lower than 22.6. That's why we didn't take off. You can only take off when the thrust from your engine is higher than the thrust from than the gravitational force. If you're wondering why we took off after a while, that's because some of that mass, some of those 2.3 tons, is solid fuel, the stuff that the engine burns to create the thrust. In all, it's 0.75 tons. That means at some point your craft might be light enough, as in this case it was, to take off, even if the initial thrust is too low or the initial weight is too high. As an easy way to figure out if your craft can take off or not, you can just you can just calculate the thrust, ASL, as in the thrust that can develop in an atmosphere. You can take that thrust and divide it by the mass of the of the craft multiplied by 10. That's usually you would divide it by the mass of the craft multiplied by 9.81, but 10 is close enough. So we divide 179.2 by 230. No, that can't. By 23 actually, not by 230. Watch out what I'm telling you, because 2.3 multiplied by 10 is 23, not 230. That would be a multiplication by 100. Actually, anyway, the thrust to weight ratio is now 7.8. Any thrust to weight ratio of more than 1 will get off the ground. Anything less than 1 won't. This ratio doesn't have a unit, because you're basically dividing newtons by newtons, and that removes the unit from the equation. Now the second part about the thrust to weight ratio: when you're taking off from a body without an atmosphere, it can be as high as you want it to be. The higher the better, pretty much. You're just getting faster very quickly. When you're taking off from a body with an atmosphere, like Kerbin, things are a bit different. I just said we got a thrust to weight ratio of 7.8, so we're gonna take off with this. So SAS on, throttle up, and we'll see how high we get. And you see with the higher thrust it's also going through the fuel much quicker. That's of course because on less thrust it's the same as with a car or something. When you're driving slower you usually don't use as much gas because the engine is burning it slower. So we are already on our way down, so I can hit F3 and look how far we've come. And we were at 3,989 meters. That's only one launch. I think it can vary by 10-20 meters, something like this. As I said, on a planet without an atmosphere, the highest thrust-to-weight ratio doesn't have to be the best. That's because at some point, or at some speed, the atmosphere starts working against you. The air is too thick and it starts slowing down your craft, even as you're accelerating. So you're pretty much wasting fuel. For maximum fuel efficiency, you on a planet with atmosphere, you actually have to revert the flight. No, you don't have to revert the flight. You have to pick a lower thrust-to-weight ratio. It still has to be above 1. It is better above 2 in the case of Kerbin. I think the last time I tried it out I got to somewhere in the vicinity of 2.6. So that's pretty much 33% of the flea solid fuel booster. So I switched the thrust limiter to this and I'm gonna launch again. Again going full throttle, SAS on, and launch. Now with 33% of thrust we are accelerating slower, but the atmosphere is not blocking us as much, so while we have a lower final speed we also stopped accelerating much later, so it'll take, or we'll get a good deal higher before we start to come down again. As you can see on the top we are already at 4,700 meters. Ah yes, there we are. And we didn't even hit 4,000 on full thrust. Like I said, that's because when you're launching in an atmosphere you're also working against it. You have to push the air out of the way. Or actually the air is slowing you down even on the way up when you're too fast. It's also slowing you down if you aren't too fast, but I think the air resistance rises quadratically or something, so it's not a linear relation. That means if you're going faster, the air is stopping you more and more. And we are back down, and yeah, we hit 4,762 meters, so 800 meters more. So if you want to save fuel on ascent, maybe because you want to go to orbit on a low fuel budget, or because you want to make sure you get to your destination without running out of fuel, then when launching from Kerbin you should watch your thrust-to-weight ratio. Actually I can recover the vessel for change. The whole air the whole air slowing you down issue is also used for a different thing, and that's aerobraking. When you're coming back from a different planet, or actually just from the moon, you can use the atmosphere to slow you down, so you don't have to use fuel for that. That's where it comes in handy. It's not so nice when you're taking off, but like I said, when you get back down, it's pretty good. Now what I'm looking for is ASL atmospheric gravity is 1g in this case. That's yeah, like I said, 9.81 meters per second. Atmospheric pressure is 1 atmosphere on Kerbin. There are different planets. I think the worst is Eve. If I find it, yeah. No. There. Where you have 5 atmospheres of pressure. And that makes taking off a bit more interesting. Especially because the gravity is also higher than on Kerbin. So it's pretty much oops, a thing. If you get to Eve, or the hardest part of missions to Eve isn't getting there, it's getting back. Different or lower gravity is on the moon. It's 1/6 of the gravity of Kerbin, so getting back up from the moon is a lot easier. You need a lot less thrust, and that also means that when you're going down, you need less thrust to slow down, to land. And I think that should be the lowest gravity in the whole system. No, I think there's another moon somewhere. Minmus has a gravity of 5% of what Kerbin has, so landing there and getting back is a doozy. I've heard it said that, or I've seen it written that a Kerbal can get to the surface of Minmus, or actually no, can get into orbit from the surface of Minmus using nothing but his EVA fuel. So there's that. So thanks for my rambling explanation, for listening to my rambling explanations. I don't think you'll want to thank me for those rambling explanations. And yeah, that's it for this video. Have a good night.